Hey, everybody, welcome back to the Spin Rack. I'm here with my boy, Petey. Say what's up, Petey.
What up?
We talking about Moon Knight, the latest episode, episode 5, I believe it is. And what I gotta say, but I'm just gonna kick this ball down the can to Petey himself. Petey, what's your take on this episode?
We're just going to give you a precursor and then we're going to get into it.
Go for it.
Hi.
This is Tauret.
Rhinoceros. Hi. Doesn't really bake your noodle.
You're right, it wasn't hippopotamus.
So he's the smart one, hey?
Sorry, what?
Impossible for the human mind to comprehend.
That's really encouraging.
Yep. So there we go. We got to the big thing, what we saw in episode 4. We haven't done a few of these, but it's been like a Indiana Jones kind of race through all these things to find the scarab, and find these different artifacts, and all these different things have been happening. And Khonshu has been going. Well, we had a bunch of things happening. They needed to see the old alignment of the stars, and that's where we lost Khonshu for a while. So we had him out, even though he still had the suit. He didn't have that sort of guidance, even though he didn't really guide him that much. He just kept telling him to kill, that sort of thing. So we had, going back and forth into these mind states, right? But at the same time, we get a big reveal. Of course, the hard part of this thing is we get this big reveal of what Mark Spector was doing, that he was a mercenary that was around when, Layla's father was killed. And so we're like, oh no, the cloud. Well, I'll get to that in a second. But then, of course, that delays them enough where Ethan Hawke's character comes in and kills Mark Spector. And he kills actually Stephen Grant, because Stephen Grant, of course, is wide-eyed, and he dies, and the next you see in the insane asylum in episode 4, you see Stephen Grant. They run into each other, and then who do they run into? This hippopotamus I just showed you, right? So this you find in this episode. This is the character that leads you to the next realm after you die. And they, take your heart, they weigh it out. Huh?
Tauret.
Yep. So she takes it out, she weighs them. But with this, there's some issue where they can't, they don't want to say that he was terrible and it doesn't weigh out. So he gets the soul snatched. But at the same time, they decide, hey, but then as this, we're going to get to reveal where these personalities come from, right? So basically, this whole thing is a journey to help them weigh the scale so they can get back. But then at the same time, the hippopotamus sees that something's going on and people are dying before their time. So maybe Moon Knight would go back, type of deal. They're not sure, but so that's what but they had to go through his past to get through this. And at some point through this, of course, it gets scaled. But at what cost do the scales get kind of put back together? So, do you want me to chime in? You want to chime in, or you want me to keep going?
You're going on right. The question though is, we all know Khonshu. So just getting back to where Khonshu is. Khonshu is basically he creates the avatars of Moon Knight to basically do his bidding on Earth. His decision to who against those who are who do evil. Moon Knight, he theoretically Khonshu. We don't understand what Khonshu is in terms of, is he good, is he bad? Mm-hmm. He has his own particular likes and dislikes, and so he's a god who's pretty he's very selfish. There's no else. He has his own will and agenda of what he wants to do. He really doesn't care much about his avatars. And that's one of the things we see here, and that one of the avatars that he currently has Mark Spector, who was a mercenary, and because him basically being resurrected and his personality being split because of that, well, now in the comics as well as in the TV show, we see that happening. But we also see in this show that like what's his name, Holloway, I believe it is, the person who is the antagonist right now in the
Mm-hmm.
Moon Knight series. He was a former avatar of Arthur Harrow, excuse me, played by Ethan Hart, was a former. He's now the avatar of Amit, the goddess, whose justice is based on future crimes. Almost like, what was that show we used to watch with Tom
Minority
Cruise?
Report.
Naughty Report, as opposed to Khonshu is basically saying if you're doing bad now, you justice should be done basically. And Arthur Harrow used to be his avatar, but somehow he broke away, and now he's working for Amit, who seems to be even more stronger on, even though she's not in the physical plane. His goal is to have her, I guess, awaken and therefore exercise her powers. So continue with your thing, but I have a couple of questions in there. Probably you may be able to better answer some of them for me.
Well, when in looking at this thing, we get to see his past, and one of the hard parts for me is that Hollywood has this thing where we have to do multiple personality disorders, we have to do insane asylums. Like the first thing he would think of is an insane asylum. Why? He hadn't thought about that in who knows how long. So why he hadn't thought any of that? He just was like, hey, I just want the body back. He'd been kind of trying to rid himself of Mark Spector. And this thing is going to stuff that we would see like in the Hulk comic book. What is the catalyst for this split personality? And that's what they kind of give you. And that's the kind of thing that I dislike, because the whole multiple personality disorder, this is what you'd see in the Hulk, which is in Peter David's Hulk, which made him pretty famous. I think other writers like Byrne did Aurora, who had 2 split personalities. The whole thing is like this. The science is not there anymore. It's now dissociative disorder. So it's changed. So they're not really sure how to. We just felt that something traumatic would happen and it would cause you to have these other personalities. And Hollywood will not give it up because Hollywood actors are good at playing different personalities in one body. So they can make realize these things, but the science isn't there anymore. For Split, any of those things. And Hollywood is like, anytime you come from somewhere else, like a space person comes in there, someone from the past, any of that, they just toss you in the insane asylum. So that's one of the things I kind of had to say. I really didn't want to see him in an insane asylum.
All I gotta say is Legion.
Legion had already done it too. Legion's also done it.
That's all I
Now,
said.
Legion is like, they already had their play, but that's the hard part, being Marvel being like the industry leader. They wind up just doing the same stuff. And this is the stuff that you would get with the Hulk if they ever did they did anything like Peter David's Hulk. But moving on from that, the other problem I have, and this is from the whole series, is that the legacy of the Empire Strikes Back, which was the idea, the bit that was it Leah Brackett, the sci-fi writer, before she passed, or she passed on the moved from writing it, she added in that Darth Vader was Luke's father, right? She added that bit into there, and then George Lucas said he took the script and he had to rewrite it. But that bit was something that he had said, I think in Rolling Stones, that was something that she kind of tossed in there. So it's one thing but it's something that had a ripple effect all through Hollywood. And if for some reason people will not give up having the bad guy tell you the truth and having the good guys hide the truth from you, like having Khonshu not telling you the whole truth, or your friends or your girlfriend, like a Mark Spector hiding stuff to say that he had this past as a mercenary and he was around the people who could have possibly killed Layla's father. And that's what they got in trouble for, and this sort of thing. Whereas you don't want to have, and then that's the thing, even when Ethan Hawke's character talks to the other avatars, he's using the fact that, oh, he picked the crazy person. And it's just like, I mean, come on. Now you're using the bad plot as it's like being cynical. Like these are the gods stupid? Are the gods crazy? That sort of thing. So I think kind of playing to this thing that Hollywood always likes to do isn't for me. They did spend a lot of money. I had to give that to them. A lot of money was spent there, and it's something they could have used in the Eternals, having this kind of money for them to have this boat on the sand and all the stuff happening, and the hippopotamus and all that. But ultimately, this is like taking, because I know there was Cal has talked about a later series, but if you look at the first issue of Moon Knight, this plays out in the first issue, but they've changed the story a lot. But it is a mercenary who's connected with this bushman who's searching for something, and at the same time, this mercenary helps out the person who would become Moon Knight's wife, which is Marlene, and then ultimately he dies, and then he comes back. So this whole thing is like an expansion of that first issue, where they've added a lot of stuff in there, where you kind of look at it and say, well, that was a 22-page or 17-page comic book, and they took it and said, well, why can't we just get to Moon Knight fighting? But, I guess this is something that people are coming back from. But I think playing up the thing of the spirit.
Oh, wait, Petey. I think it's an unfair. I don't mean to interrupt you, but it's an unfair.
Not unfair.
It's an unfair comparison when you say
why
22-page comic. What comic is specifically, so we know what you're talking about instead of you just
Moon Knight issue 1. Like we talked about it before. Moon Knight had appearances,
but we didn't talk about it to everybody else so they understand.
I'm not saying we know what we did. We did an episode that we had where we debated that, but I'm just saying when we did our video, we didn't necessarily point out that Mark Spector is on the thing working for someone as a mercenary to get these Egyptian artifacts.
Right.
In there, he has a moment of heroism where this bushman, a person of color, is trying to get this thing, and he kills, but he saves Marlene. He doesn't allow Marlene to be killed, but she kind of knows he's a mercenary, so that bit kind of played out in the story. But then, but then he saves her. He dies, and then he comes back to life. But then he has this. So the spirit, you don't know if it's a spirit, but he obviously came back to life. The suit doesn't give him anything. He just puts on the cape and the hood, and he fights. And the next he comes up with a costume, which he adds all these gadgets and whatnot. Where now it's like everything is in the suit, because you had to have the Black Panther had everything in the suit, when in the comic the outfit was not. I don't even know, the outside of having claws on his gloves, I don't even know if the Black Panther had any gadgets, so.
I don't know. But the Moon Knight has a lot of other abilities that are bestowed upon him by Khonshu. So it's not just, you say the suit, but there's other things, what I'm trying to say?
But in the comics, it's just vengeance and fighting, and that's what we need to get to.
But that's in the comics. That's how you have some of the powers that he showed. What I'm trying to say? Yes, the show isn't showing all of those powers at the moment, but it is showing that through Khonshu, like, for example, when you see him turning back the time, the night skies, he's using the power of Khonshu to make that stuff done. So,
it's a little above his pay grade, but
he's being worked as the avatar of a god, Lord G, to do those type of things.
The god is just for vengeance, and that's what he's supposed to be doing, dealing some vengeance out.
Vengeance, but he's also the moon god, right? So you're limiting the powers of Khonshu right then and there.
No, I'm not. I'm saying I want to just have. It's tough to say, because in my mind, done right, you'd have Moon Knight, the costume a little slicker than what we see. Instead of having a mummy type outfit, like, let's have a slick, like, not gray, but something that would be white to go to play with the night. But they kind of not decided to. The closest they had was the eclipse in the other episode where he called to the gods. We're getting to that stuff that you'd see in sorry to say, stuff you see in like Frank Miller's Spirit movie, those sort of graphics, like that graphic sort of look to it, but not having the ridiculousness of Frank Miller's Spirit, like really getting to the cool sort of graphics that Miller kind of used and kept using from the Sin City movie and exploiting it with this guy who's, you can have him in the night and then you have this, you could do some cool visuals. All that money they spent could be done on making some cool visuals of Moon Knight swinging through the sky with his cape and that sort of thing.
He
So
did do that. He did that in the, I think, what, the second episode?
but it wasn't like a thing where it was like a visual thing that you would take and make a poster of. I can go through, as bad as Spirit was, there's shots in there that are just gorgeous. And I'm just thinking they should have just kind of went for a visual of just having a Night Avenger, of this vengeance thing, instead of spending all this time trying to, apologize about Moon Knight not being a Egyptian person, a person of Egyptian heritage who gets this thing. He's just a random mercenary who's out there who has a moment of power. In this thing, he's this guy who's actually. So we've gotten way deep into this thing. As we get through it, Mark is the one that they can't solve the weights thing. They can't solve the weights of the heart. Still won't do it. So he has to go through his past. We find out that he had a brother, and the brother, he went to this little hole of this area where there's like some water, and the tide rises, and it took his brother. And his mother never forgave him. The mother went crazy, and the mother was just terrible to him, talking bad to him, and then we find him beating him with this. Hello?
I'm right here.
Okay, we had something happen. But yeah, we had the mother was beating him, and then he would separate, and he would come up with this character that was connected to the wall, which was Stephen Grant. But he wasn't a hero. He was the one who would look at things positively. Whereas in the comic, he was kind of just developed some other identities so he could do his business. So the Moon Knight had some aspects of the Spirit in him, some aspects of Batman, and some aspects of the Shadow, right? So they kind of took it and they just turned it to multiple personality disorder, which Hollywood loves. And then that personality is like, no, I thought I was real. I thought you were the fake thing. And the next thing you know, while they're on the boat, of course, Mark can't fight against these creatures that are trying to drag them out. That's what the hippo was telling them. But then he's like, hey, I'm you, so I can do the same things too. So he's able to fight back. For some reason, Mark's still not able to fight back. And then we lose Steven, and he gets frozen, and there's a sad moment that you can't connect to, and Mark Spector is there alone. So this is a long sort of thing for his resurrection, but
it's super long. I mean, and the key thing here is that the question is whether or not this was necessary, right? The question is whether or not that we needed to go through this whole story to tell. I think that Moon Knight in this show, they're trying to show us the Egyptian culture, and I don't know why some people are getting upset about whether Moon Knight is a Egyptian or not. We know in the comics he's not, so give me a break. He is an avatar of an Egyptian god, which is different. And when you see the Council of the Aeneid, you see that they have people of different walks of life. They're not all Egyptians. I don't even know if they were Egyptians, but let's just say I don't think.
Yeah.
And so that stuff that there are people talking about makes no sense. Again, I think you need to just mute Twitter. People talk all kinds of nonsense. But continuing with the story is that his whole the whole development of the Stephen Grant character is very different than what's in the comic, right? You were just saying it's just an alter ego, but as time has gone on, it's become part of that whole multiple personalities that we see now in the comics, I believe. But it's
Stephen Grant was the millionaire. Mark Spector was the mercenary.
And who was the other one? The cab driver?
And then the cab driver was something, I forget his name. Like it might be, I'm going to think of a comic book name, so artist. So it's not the one I'm thinking of. So
So look, I don't want to dislike it. I don't
You
want
don't want to,
but like I was
but
telling
it
you
sounds
before,
like you are.
like I've said before, I think the production value is great. Oscar Isaac does a great job. I'm not necessarily for. I think once again he's in a role that I'm not necessarily 100% for. In that, um, when we look at all the different levels of Marvel characters, from what they have now with the Avengers, you have the premier tier, the secondary, the tertiary. Moon Knight isn't all the way up there, and of course you're missing Fantastic Four. You're missing the X-Men, which has an abundance of people, and I think that's probably one of the things. Marvel's basically reaching into the grab bag and grabbing some stuff out. Now, and I think that's a good idea, and I think you can, and I think Moon Knight had an opportunity to do this, and had a great opportunity to develop the whole Egyptian god pantheon, which they're basically doing, which is good. And I think it's probably helps us in the upcoming Thor, the God Butcher movie. Gods have to die, and you got to throw probably a couple of Egyptian gods to die. I'm trying to say you're going to have some gods from the Greek pantheon, and I don't know how many other gods there are in Asgardian the pantheon, because they really don't show anybody but Loki, Thor, and Odin and his wife Freya. So it's something there. But getting back to the show, in that we have Tauret the hippopotamus.
Yeah.
Hippopotamus, and I don't think they do a very good job of explaining her. I mean, they do have a segment there, but I think it should have been simpler and much more expansive. You get what I'm trying to say? You don't have to give her more of a role, but you got to like point out who she is, or you should have led up to that before she showed up. Hey, prior a prelude before, where somebody say, "Hey, if you ever die, Tauret has to be the person to look at you," or whatever. Not at the moment of the scene trying to explain it. So at least you see that it's a setup that what's going to happen and how and what happens. I like the fact that they had the scales balancing, the feather versus your heart, and if it doesn't stack up, you don't get in, which is cool. But I mean, I don't really like these shows when they have multiple personalities, because it takes away from the narrative of just who is this person. I mean, it's great from a standing when in a story, and I understand the story situation where you're like, hey, we start here. Stephen Grant works in London and he doesn't know who he is, but it's like you have to do it well, and it has to be. And don't get me wrong, I think Oscar Isaac does a great job acting it, but I'm saying, what is the payoff? That's what I always look at. At the very end, you go through the story. What is the payoff? And I'm not feeling the payoff too right now. I think there's elements. The production value is fantastic. The scenes are fantastic, but the payoff at the very end is what we're looking for, and I'm so far, I'm like, oh, this movie's like, oh, it's just driving me nuts. I mean, let me not even talk about Halo, but this is like, where is it? How do you bring people? The whole goal of the game is to get people to want to watch Moon Knight, right? And I'm not hearing anybody really talking about it. I'm not hearing anybody saying, "Hey, let's go check out that Moon Knight because he's really intriguing and stuff." They're not getting it because they're not connecting to some of the characters. Yes, Mark Spector is a little bit reprehensible because he was a mercenary and he's done some stuff, But we have to connect to someone. It seems they want us to connect with Steven, And Steven was created, but that is not Mark Spector. The one who's going to be Moon Knight is Mark Spector, all right? Unless there's another personality that they haven't come out yet with, but we only have 6 episodes. And I think the next episode's coming up. The final episode's coming up this week. So
6 episodes.
I don't think that many episodes.
Wow. So it's basically like the first issue of Moon Knight expanded into 6 episodes. That's nutty.
It's 6 episodes. Or it's like we like to say,
What do we like to say?
It's just a 3-hour movie. That's all it is, right?
Oh, well, 6-hour movie.
6 hour. No, it's 6 hour movie. 6 hour movie. Sorry.
You go about 50 minutes. And
yeah, I was counting. I think one episode was like 40 something minutes, and another
like close to 50, most of them. So if you try to take off from that and go by 6, yeah, maybe.
So that's what it really is. I mean, and I'm just like, come on, man, let's get it on. But at least I think that they're at least sticking to the general idea of what Moon Knight is. When you look at a series like the current Halo series, where they're doing their own thing. They're doing, You
don't think this is them doing their own thing? You saying because they have Egyptian gods in it, it's keeping the spirit of what the comic was?
I'm saying they are doing their... I'm saying that they have done. There's been some.
They're totally doing a Halo.
They've done some huge revisions, but at least it's essentially you can see the house of Moon Knight. In Halo, it basically said, "Yo, we're going to use the Halo name and do something totally different." They're going to give the whole Halo affair. We're going to plaster it and say, "Yo, it's Halo," but no, it's not Halo. So that's all my saying here.
No, that's always trying to find some way to push up the Marvel stuff and push down.
Oh, so you're trying to say
I'm gonna take that and dunk that in the deep end while I push it on Marvel stuff and say, hey, at least Marvel has the costume is the same. Costume is the same.
The costume is different. The way that the mummy wraps looks different. Come on. And it's
so then you go, they've made changes, right?
Right. They
Master Chief the same. Only difference, Master Chief, they showed his face, right? Then they added a whole bunch of other stuff.
Wait. Master Chief, they showed his face. That's a huge thing that they showed his face right away. Okay, let's not even go there.
Okay, the thing is like this. You can say this thing and comparing it, but they tossed out making a Spirit of Vengeance sort of comic and just having a man of action for all of this stuff where we didn't even get to meet. We don't even know everything that's described about Khonshu is from the villain of the story that's trying to kill people. Everything we know about him that we believe in this show is from the villain. So that doesn't make any sense.
But we know from the comic, Khonshu is not a good guy.
But
right?
Ethan Hawke isn't either.
We understand. I mean, we know the way the Marvel.
But who's worse? Ethan Hawke is saying that Khonshu's worse than him. Then what are we watching this for? If we buy into the villain and Khonshu is as bad as the villain says, then why are we watching this? Who is your hero in this story?
Well, in the comic book, you have when Moon Knight actually fought Khonshu. Remember that? So if you're using that logic, then why are we reading the Moon Knight comic? The whole point is that the person we're really going for is the Moon Knight. We're going for
Moon Knight shouldn't be fighting Khonshu. That's the thing. You shouldn't be fighting Khonshu. They shouldn't have done any of that stuff. I understand that they did it in one comic book. I'm talking about what Marvel did, is saying, hey, we've been trying to do our Batman in the Shroud.
I don't see Batman. I'm tired of Batman comparisons. Just because he has a big cape.
Spirit of Vengeance. That's what they're doing. Batman. Spirit of Vengeance. So what? Millionaire.
Not Batman.
Master of Disguise. Come on.
Batman. Sick of the Batman comparison. There's nothing close to Batman.
Kidding me?
Are you kidding me?
You want to see, this is what the creators did. They came on there because the artist, artist had already done some Moon Knight. And then, let's see, can I find this? Yeah, here we go. It's on Twitter. Get up off Twitter. Well, I can't do much with this, but see this thing where he says, get out of my way, old timer?
But it doesn't work. It's not close anywhere near that.
And then, no, that's what the thing was. Once that happened, that led Neil Adams to do another one where Batman hits him with the Batarang and makes him trip in response. But the thing about Moon Knight is that he's a cool visual and he's a character.
Yes.
To see how in the comic the cape was sort of making moves on its own. That's one of the things that you're kind of playing with, where you take this thing and you can do some cool stuff. But I don't want to worry about it being like Batman, because the thing of it is, we had all these issues that Bill Sienkiewicz had done, where they were exploring these visual aspects of the character, getting him into the fighting these things, and not trying to do a story where we worry about trying to do Indiana Jones. If that's the case, I don't know. If that's the case, then I don't know. It's just really
the reason Moon Knight and Batman aren't the same is that Moon Knight's powers come from a god. He's the avatar of a god. Batman does not have that. He's not the avatar of Athena or something like that. He is a man with incredible skill, incredible intelligence, and incredible drive.
I said
Okay?
Marvel's Batman, right? Like DC
Not
tried
Batman.
to do stop.
There's
DC tried to do stop. When I say DC tried to do DC's Batman or DC Spider-Man, they did Firestorm, Blue Beetle, and Blue Devil, trying to capture the spirit of what the Spider-Man comic was like. But that doesn't mean you just do the same character. You have different aspects. You don't need to have to explain, well, hey, Blue Devil puts a suit on. What's the similarities between him and Spider-Man? Oh, Firestorm uses nuclear power to shoot energy blasts and change things into different forms of stuff. How is that like Spider-Man? No.
How is that like Spider-Man?
Because it has a young kid, and instead of having him being a genius, he has a dual identity of a scientist at the same time. So you have the kid stuff and you have the science put into one body where he goes.
Damn.
No, the two people. Listen, this doesn't look at this. Why are you fighting me on it? The approach to the character is what goes into being like Spider-Man. The approach to Moon Knight being vengeance is what the thing is. It's not saying he has to have his parents were killed and that'll make.
I'm not saying that, and I understand that the development of the character. All I'm just saying is that it's just not the same. I think it's a big.
It's not supposed to be, else they'd sue.
It's not even close. You know, you got like
it's
you have like
character. He was a character that was fighting. He had these gadgets. He didn't have power.
If you had something like Thanos, and you had Darkseid to agree, you can see some similarities there. You know, but here
I already said he's a millionaire, right? The suit doesn't have any powers. The suit is a costume. The suit
but he has been endowed with powers from Khonshu.
No, remember? I'm talking about the characters that look at this. He was brought back to life by this. Everything else that was added to it later takes away from the character being this spirit of vengeance. That the character was going down the street and beating up, but they didn't really say that he was any more powerful than Daredevil, who's human level powerful. So it's like, if you're thinking about it in that way, it wasn't this thing where Khonshu came, gave him all his powers, and Batman had powers. This person was killed and brought back to life. That's the difference. But they added that later. He was already a spirit of vengeance, and they came up with an origin that wouldn't be exactly like Batman. But the thing of it is, after you get past the origin, it's him with all these other identities fighting against crime, right? Going in and breaking heads, going back to, that's why he's saying old timer in the video, the drawing is that he's gonna be breaking legs, the old school Batman on the edge.
So again, we're gonna have to. I'm glad that you agree with me, Petey. That you're.
It's funny how in the last video we've done, at times I've conceded, and it seems my partners cannot concede on anything.
I can concede.
You have not conceded on anything ever.
I concede all the time.
Not ever.
I concede that some people think he's like Batman, which I think is nuts. You know, I concede that yes, the story is not as I don't know. It's a tough story. You know, that's all I got to say. It's a tough story. But let's see. Hopefully they'll pull it out in the final episode.
They don't even know if they're going to be doing more of this. So it is, as you said, a 3-hour movie or 4-hour movie. I guess with 50 minutes, it's a 3-hour movie.
Well, I mean, let's get to reality. What do you think they're building up to, right?
Building up to what?
Blade?
Why? Blade isn't what's the name?
Blade, Moon Knight. I don't know. They're not going to have Morbius. Blade, Moon Knight, the Black Knight, possibly Strange, the Sons of.
They're not going to do no Sons of the Tiger.
Midnight.
Here we go. You want to say that? Look at this. Here is Moon Knight, and he's got his gadgets. right? Look at those gadgets, grappling hook. And he got his, like the batarangs.
Oh my gosh.
And look at this. None of the suits said that this is a bulletproof, this, that, and the other. It's just here's him and here's his gadgets. But what do I know? Oh, they finally added some more of the Egyptian thing in there later. They knew that they were trying to do Batman, or at least the Avengers, and they came with some different stuff. And at some point, that's what the kids thought. The kids were like, "This is a current Batman. Batman is boring. Batman wasn't even selling back then." Well, not that well at the same time, but he had 3 titles.
I mean, look, like I said before, I think this is all a setup in the end run, and that's why.
For what?
I just said it.
Don't say Blade. Blade is a vampire. This is a character connected to the moon.
Right, but the
Moon
god, the moon god. But just look, just in moon, just in the Midnight Suns, you have Hellstorm, you have Satana, you have.
We don't have Hellstorm anymore. That's canceled for good.
Okay, you have Doctor Strange, you got Johnny Blaze, you got you know, Moon Knight, you got Punisher, you know, you got Doctor Voodoo. You know, some of these characters, it's possible that they can be put in, and I'm just saying they may be setting it up, just like they're setting up the West Coast of the Young Avengers. Marvel is doing that. They're setting up.
Nobody wants to see the Young Avengers.
Well, whether or not you think so, they already have a lot of the pieces already set up. So if they want to go that way,
nobody wants to see Hulkling. Nobody wants to see none of that. No one wants to see legacy characters connected to that thing.
I bet you they do have it down. I bet you they do. You know, the Thunderbolts, they've set up a lot of characters for the Thunderbolts already. So that's another option.
I want to see the Thunderbolts. They're not even, the thing is, like, the Thunderbolts only work when they have enough villains to do a story. Why would they do a Thunderbolt story where you don't even have enough villains for the villains to act like they're heroes? And then they're all characters you don't know. Yeah, you could do that story saying, hey, we're the new heroes. I don't know.
I mean, you have a
TV show?
I'm just saying
the heroes in there for it to work.
I'm just saying that it looks as though they're getting a lot of characters, just setting things up to give Marvel the opportunity, you know, to do some of these things. We do have a bullseye, you know, now that we have the Netflix shows coming in, there is a bullseye there. We have US Avenger, we have
US Agent.
US Agent. You have you got Yelena Belova involved in there. We theoretically have a Ghost Rider, but I think they may be doing a new.
Not the car one from what's the name?
Let's not talk. The car one was fine. You know?
No, it was not.
Oh,
no, it was not.
Yes, it was. Yes, it was.
No way. You're not buying into that nonsense. You're not getting me to.
Taskmaster. You can do. I mean, they have stuff that they can do. They have bad characters they can do. So, you know, Brother Voodoo. I don't know if they want to use him for that. So there's stuff that can be done that they can do. All I'm just saying is that you may not want to see it, but they can do it. That's all I'm saying.
Wow.
Right?
All right, so we're going to close this one off, right?
Yeah, and you know, once again, I agree 100% with what PD says. You know, but so listen to what he says. I'm for it. We love the episode, and we want.
We did not love the episode.
We want to continue watching, and we're not sure how this is going to end, but we hope that it's going to end at a.
They shouldn't have had They didn't have the insane asylum. Shouldn't have had the villain explaining how bad the spirit of Khonshu is, and this is permeated through the entire series. And then doing the multiple personality disorder. The science isn't there anymore, so we can stop doing it, Hollywood. We have to stop. Spin Rack.
Out.